World War Z, The Walking Dead, iZombie, I Am Legend. I could go on, but I think you get my point. Our society is infatuated with zombies. We're so obsessed, in fact, that there have been over 500 zombie movies and TV programs made across the world to date. We just can't seem to get enough of these bone-crunching, brain-gobbling monsters. Everywhere you turn, there's another movie, another book, another show, and the only thing better than watching someone get torn apart by a ravenous corpse would probably have to be doing it from the safety of our own living rooms. But what if it wasn't just a show? What if the zombie apocalypse actually happened? You know, in actual real life. Assuming we didn't get stuck in some undead love story, things would get hairy pretty quickly. To put the scale of just how screwed we'd be into perspective, there are somewhere in the ballpark of over 1 billion dead bodies under our feet at this very moment. You just looked down, didn't you? Don't worry, not every human who's ever died still has flesh or, more importantly, tendons and muscle. A body buried straight in the soil without embalming would melt down into a skeleton in just 12 years. If you add a coffin and a bit of formaldehyde to the process, a cadaver can take more than half a century to completely decompose. Still, that's nothing compared to the overwhelmingly long span of human history. Cut that billion into probably about 1 million viable zombies, maybe less. What would you do if you woke up and the streets were packed with the rabid corpses of the undead? How would people survive? Would mankind perish? Or would we be able to survive long enough to reclaim our world? For that matter, is a zombie apocalypse even possible? Stay tuned until the end of this video to find out. But before we begin, if you're enjoying the video, then feel free to leave a like and chomp down on that subscribe button. You can ring the notification bell for a chance to be the first one to view new content from my channel. Now let's get started. Alright, let's get straight down to it. If the zombie apocalypse started, people in big cities would be the first to go. Disease spreads fast in close quarters, and the tightly packed streets of civilization would provide a quick route for viruses to race from one individual to the next. Just look at cold and flu season. Schools and offices run rampant with one bug after another. If your kid gets sick, you carry that bug to work with you. You spread it down at the store, you take it on a plane because a sore throat isn't going to stop you from going on vacation. You can see where this is going. But it's not really that big of a deal, is it? Everybody knows that people get sick because of the cold. That's why it's literally called a cold. Except that's not really what makes us sick. Don't believe me? Go to any Norwegian country and look around. You might be surprised to find balconies and sidewalks lined with cribs and bassinets. Children and babies as young as 2 weeks old are regularly put down for their naps outside, even in the middle of winter. It could be 4 below zero, and those babies, the most vulnerable members of the human race, are out there for hours at a time. The idea is that the fresh air boosts a baby's immune system and encourages healthy breathing, therefore reducing the chance of SIDS. So it's true, the cold doesn't give you a cold. Bacteria is what makes you sick. Viruses are what make you sick. And being in close contact with other humans makes avoiding all those germs practically impossible. Within hours of the first bite, a day at most, places like London, New York City, and Atlanta will fall. Anyone not infected is likely already dead or trapped behind a surging wall of the insatiable zombies. If you live outside the city, your chances are much better. Say patient 0 is in New York City, but you live upstate. While the Big Apple is burning, you might get another day, maybe even a week of warning, depending on how far out you are. It's what you do with that warning that makes all the difference to your survival. The first instinct might likely be mass hysteria. The majority of people aren't exactly known for keeping their cool in a crisis, and the bigger the mob, the more intense the frenzy becomes. If you need an example of this behavior, all you have to do is look at Black Fridays. Every year, someone gets crushed to death by an angry mob over TVs and microwaves. What do you think is going to happen when it's a real emergency? People are going to literally run right over one another in their mad dash to escape. They'll hit pedestrians with their cars, trample slower individuals on foot, and even shoot their way out of town. Crime, looting, and chaos are an absolute certainty. As gruesome as it sounds, those people who get out by whatever means necessary are going to have the best chance at survival. Research teams have developed sophisticated computer simulations to help them predict what might happen in an actual zombie outbreak. It's a little worrying that they're worrying about it, but the point is that their feelings have suggested that the most effective way to stay alive in the presence of such an aggressive virus is to isolate yourself. Get away from other people. Head for the hills, the mountains, anywhere where no one else is around. The more people there are, the greater your risk for infection becomes. In order for our species to survive a zombie apocalypse, humanity would have to divide. Thankfully, within the first few hours to a day after the original outbreak, the military is already on it. Everybody knows that zombies are already dead. You can't kill them in regular ways. They don't feel pain. A zombie can lose an arm or a leg or have their nose smashed in and still keep coming at you. Ironically, the only way to kill them is to sever the brainstem from their autopilot bodies. This can be done by crushing or completely removing their heads. And chances are, by this point, every shotgun, axe, and hammer in whatever city is being hit has already been scavenged by the general population. But that's okay, because the military doesn't need them. They have tanks. While the majority of humanity is running for their lives, soldiers will be rolling through waves of writhing, furious bodies. Unfortunately, even if the outbreak were caught early and the military was sent right away, chances are that no amount of force could stop the spread of the virus. You can kill every current zombie and miss someone who's been bitten but hasn't yet turned. All it takes is one single missed corpse, one stupid decision from someone trying to save their own skin. A fire can spark from a single ember and level hundreds of miles. Disease is even harder to fight because it has an incubation period where it remains unseen. Fire is obvious. It might take a while. Heck, it might take everything you've got. But you can put it out. You can't kill what you can't see, and developing cures for diseases takes years, decades even. In a zombie apocalypse, mankind doesn't have years. Sure, there's always a chance that survivors could develop immunity. They might even develop a vaccine if they can manage to survive that long. But I guess the gist of the story is that if there's an outbreak today and zombies start tearing apart your sidewalk, then the human race is probably already doomed. Estimates of the death toll in a zombie outbreak have been calculated by scientists to be about 90% of the population worldwide. 90% of humanity dead. For the record, at today's population count, that's somewhere around 7 billion people. Just imagine the whole host of secondary diseases that would occur as a result of all those dead bodies. There's no way the zombies could eat all of it, and faced with a world of decay, the remaining survivors would have to deal with filtering their water and growing food around contaminants responsible for food poisoning, the plague, and botulism. The death rates would rise back to a natural level, and all of a sudden basic survival would be more important than frivolous things like vaccines. Who has time for medicine when everyone has to grow and hunt their own food? Speaking of which, that also means the survivors would no longer be at the top of the food chain. Our world is so automated that humanity practically doesn't remember how to exist without a computer. It would be a hard fall from factory-made bullets to trying to sharpen sticks and hunting on horseback. Of course, all this is just speculation. One very important question still remains. Is a zombie apocalypse possible? In the traditional sense, probably not. Dead people don't just rise up from the grave 10 years later to gnaw on their family. But nature is a big and sometimes terrible thing. And let's face it, mankind is a greedy, controlling race. Like the Reavers in Joss Whedon's Firefly series, there may come a time when our governments take it too far, and their efforts to control our behavior lead to manic, rabid monsters. But for now, the biggest zombie makers are actually fungi. That's right, mushrooms. One of the spores of a member of the Ophiocordyceps family infect a host, they have days at best. As the fungus spreads through its victim, usually an insect, it drives the poor creature insane. Somehow, the fungus can implant its victim with an insatiable need to climb to a safe location where the mature mushroom can grow. Other species direct ants to bite down onto the bottoms of leaves where they die, and the resulting fungus can grow in perfectly sheltered safety. We're literally talking about a mushroom controlling another being's mind so it can reproduce as efficiently as possible. Let me repeat that. A mushroom, something that has no brain, no heart, no discernible thought process at all, is able to implant urges and thoughts into a living, breathing animal. True, humans are a far cry from an ant, both in size and mental complexity. Our brains are simply more elaborately wired, and the chances a portobello will learn how to control our thoughts is slim at best. But if the ants have taught us anything, it's that it could be possible. So what would you do if you woke up in the zombie apocalypse? Assuming you weren't stuck in ground zero, you'd run. You might loot a few stores or crush someone else on your way out. but your chances of survival increase when you put distance between yourself and other people. Staying isolated for as long as possible minimizes your risk of infection. Even with those precautions, the majority, if not all of humanity, would succumb to the virus and whatever diseases followed it. But the scariest part of all of this is that a zombie apocalypse might actually be possible. It might not happen in the way we think it will, but like ants clustered on the forest floor, we've grown our numbers too much. We're too close together and we have far too many ways to travel and take a virus or fungal infection with us. If you enjoyed this video, then why not subscribe? Hit that bell icon as well so you're more likely to get notified of our noble answers to your burning questions. Also, if you have any questions you want answered, make sure to tell me in the comments section down below. And to keep filling your brain with regal knowledge, check out these videos here. They're magnificent.